All right, the Vegas Raiders. The Raiders. Sorry, everybody had to love the Raiders a little bit. When NFL primetime comes on, you got Chris Berman saying it that way. It's like, how do you not enjoy this? Look, hey, we'll admit we are not Raiders fans first. We are Detroit Lions fans. This is our second channel. We have another channel called Sports Talk Detroit. Hey, if you want to hear more about the Lions, go head over to that one. Subscribe to that one. But we are here to talk Raiders football right now. We love talking about teams that the national media seems to ignore. And I don't know what it is. Like, I feel like the Raiders have done everything right. They've brought in people who have experience at the GM position, at the head coach position. They've done nothing but make good, professional, smart moves to build around the talent that's already there, to overhaul where it needs to be overhauled, and to change where it needs to be changed. And they're not getting the love. They're not getting the love that they need to. And so we're here to spread some of that along with some other teams. But I want to talk about two things. You see double dose of good news. First, I want to talk about the move that was made immediately. It was an immediate thing that had to happen as soon as Pete Carroll got the job. And then we're going to talk about a wide receiver that I think is going to open up and be absolutely helpful for them. So first, let's talk about your quarterback. Let's talk about Geno Smith. Confidence scale, 1 to 10. How excited are you, or how confident are you about Geno Smith? Throw it in the comments. Do it right now. All right? A 10 is through the moon. He's a phenomenal quarterback. We're Super Bowl contenders because of him, and he's that great. 1 is I hate him. He's trash. I'd rather have a backup. All right? And somewhere in between that 5, 6, 7 range is just like, you know what? I'm somewhere in the level of like, whatever, he's a stopgap. That's a 5. Your 7, your 8 is like, I think we could do some stuff with him. So let us know in the comments what you think about that. But I'll tell you, one guy who would give him like an 8 or a 9 at least is Pete Carroll. And he went and he detailed why and what it looked like with Geno Smith. First, I thought something was really, really interesting. As Sports Illustrated's Albert Briel detailed in an article, Smith frequently reached out to Carroll during the 2024 season when he needed a sounding board. At the time, Smith was still a Seahawk. We know that. He was starting quarterback, and Carroll was out of football. And here's what Pete Carroll said. I was just being a friend, really. I was just being a friend and loving him up and supporting him through all the good stuff and the hard stuff. In other words, there were some difficult things. And then after the season goes, we know what the contract things looks like. And then he goes and he signs with the Raiders, and you have to think to yourself, like, man, Seattle must have been willing to do a similar contract to that because of what they gave Sam Darnold. So there must have been some unique things going on there. But what we're talking about in this article, we're not too worried about what the Seahawks were doing. We do videos on the Seahawks, but we're not worried about that in this moment. What we see is a guy in Pete Carroll that very clearly enjoys Geno Smith. And here's what he had to say on Brock and Salk when he was on a radio show. He said what he demonstrated to me when he was coaching Geno Smith was this remarkable connection in spirit to being ready. Knowing that the very next play, he may be in the game, Carroll said. He never forgot that. And his resolve about that, I thought, was so exceptional that when he got his turn, I was thrilled for him. Look, we're going to go into some more quotes that Pete Carroll says, but here's what I want to talk to you about in that opportunity. Remember, with Pete Carroll, year 1 of Geno Smith being a starting quarterback after being a primary backup to Russell Wilson for 2 to 3 seasons. All right, 3 seasons, I believe it was. All right, he had his most dropbacks. He had his most attempts. He had his most completions in his career. He had his most passing yards in a single season in his career. He had his yards per attempt, if attempting, enough passes in his career. He had his most touchdowns in a season with 32 in his career. And he had a 2.5, a little over 2.5 to 1, like more like a 2.7 to 1 touchdown to interception ratio. Something he has never done before and he has never done since. In the second year, he was still at like a 2.1 to 1 touchdown to interception ratio. And then this year, he threw 21 touchdowns to 15 picks. That's like a 1.5 to 1. All right, he had what was by far his best year under Pete Carroll, and even arguably his second best year under Pete Carroll. All right? But it is this love of his leadership, his maturity, his willingness to do whatever it took as a backup, not even what he did as a starter, that led Carroll to want him to come here. He said this opportunity comes up, this opportunity meaning head coach of the Raiders. And we need a quarterback. And he said, I mean, really, to me, it was a classic opportunity for us to really transition with the quarterback position, with a coach that they see eye to eye on everything. And then he went on to say, already, Geno has killed it here. He's been such a factor. The leadership that he brings and his work ethic, his mentality, and he looks great throwing the football. It's been a fantastic assistance to turning this thing over. Look, I can't tell you enough how important a good quarterback is. Like, you don't need that. But what there is the struggle with, especially the last couple years, is do you have a quarterback that is a leader? It's not just talent. It's not just talent. It's leadership. And I'm telling you right now, Geno Smith is somebody that I love throwing the football. So the question is, who's he going to throw the ball to? And he is a guy who is mature, Geno Smith. He's a mature NFL quarterback. He was mature as a backup, and especially in Seattle, and he was mature as a starter, and now he's been mature as a leader for the Raiders. But then there's a young guy that is extremely mature beyond his years. All right, I think I've even mentioned this on this channel before, but look at this quote from him when talking about what's expected from him when he gets into minicamp. This is Jack Beck, your rookie wide receiver out of TCU. He said, whenever you get thrown in the mix, you have to mature. You have to learn much quicker, said Beck, who spent 2 seasons at LSU before transferring to TCU. So same thing here. You don't have any time to just come in here and not know what you're doing, not play full speed. You've got to come here sharp, condition. You have to understand the game. You have to understand the playbook. I think that only matures you and gets you better. So I definitely like it. And talking about the transition to the NFL. He is a guy who's saying, I want to be an outside receiver for this team day one. I want to be a great target for Geno Smith day one. And that is exactly what the Raiders need. That is exactly what they need. They need a mature quarterback throwing to a young, talented, but mature wide receiver. You have him. You have Brock Bowers already. Can you imagine how much of Brock Bowers you can unlock just by giving him a above-average quarterback? Are you kidding me right now? Even if you gave him an average quarterback. It's unbelievable the kind of talent that he has. And then you throw in Ashton Jeanty, and all of a sudden you're like, is this offense going to be good? Like, I think it is. I can't wait to watch Raiders games this year. Can't wait. It's going to be an absolute blast. So we're going to look at this. I hope you're excited about the season, but I really do think there was good news on 2 different fronts. One, a quarterback and a head coach and a coaching staff that see eye to eye. They're on the same page. And then you have the maturity of a John Spytek, right, as a GM who can draft mature players in the draft as well. Phenomenal news. Love it. All right. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button. Why not? We got a ton of Raiders content. We'll see you on the next one.